Hi, this is GMA Tank, and this is the Painting with Commentary video for the Pathfinder's Battles Deep Cuts Nightmare Dragon, featured in Paint to Life episode 45. This is Tormentia. Now, one thing about this model that I haven't had in a while was there was a bit of deformity. As you can see, the tail was almost touching its back and wings, so I had to get out my little teeny heater and turn it on and warm it up so that I could reshape it. You can use any heater for this or hairdryer. You just don't want it to be so hot like one of those carpenter's heat guns that'll cause the plastic to burn. So as you can see, it gets malleable, warm it up, pull it away from the body, styled it the way I wanted, then give it a nice dunk in my cold water bath, and when it comes out, it is now posed in such a way, and it will stay that way forever. Also, you can see I've broken it off of the plastic base that it comes with, so it's just resting on its clear, smoky look. And that's how I'm going to work with this. Now, this is the first model that I've ever painted on Paint to Life with an airbrush. I bought myself a compressor. It came with this cheap little airbrush. I don't know, cheap. It was a $200 compressor. Or $150 compressor, $200 because it came with this airbrush. It's a gravity-fed airbrush, as you can see. This was me just playing with it out of the box. Never used an airbrush before. Put some contrast paint in to try, and just getting the hang of the dual nozzle here. But I'm going to get better, and I also am going to splurge on myself and buy an Iwata, a better actual airbrush, because I did really enjoy using this, and from what I've read online, I think it'd be worthwhile of an investment to get a premium airbrush versus using one of these cheap Chinese knockoffs. I don't want to develop bad habits because of my technology. I'll just, get myself that for my birthday, and that'll be that. So there I was, noodling around with this airbrush, and I'm going to use it right after I was done on that card with this model. Here it comes. So I'm putting it on the wings, the Grifthound Orange. The source picture for this mini is here. I'll put it up on the screen so you can see. And it's got orange, blacks, and yellow and whites. So I'm airbrushing its wings first with the orange. I was trying to leave some of that gray behind the primed color. So I'm trying to keep the orange lightly applied, especially around the edge. I did an okay job of that, but seeing as this is like the 7th minute I've had an airbrush in my hand in my life, it is what it is. I ultimately, while I didn't catch it on film, I did go back over these wings with some gray cere, which we'll catch later in the video, which is the same color as the Vallejo gray primer that the WizKids models are primed with, and I'll hit those wings again to recapture some of the whiteness that was in the source image. Okay, so now I'm doing his frill. Fun fact, my mom really didn't like this orange and black color scheme at all, but again, following the Monsters Manual from the Paizo's Bestiary edition number 5 from Pathfinder. That's where this dragon comes. But again, with the airbrush and using a contrast paint to just kind of feather it in there, to have it darker in some spots, lighter in others. Could have done this with a brush, but it's the new exciting thing for me to play with is the airbrush. So if you have an airbrush, feel free to do something similar, but you could definitely paint this on with the brush as well. And probably get a more consistent result since I'm such a rookie blue with using this airbrush. So that's that. That's the way that his back and gloves turn out. Gloves, really? Now the Army Painter has this metallic color paint set, which I grabbed, and as you can see here, those were all the paints painted out on a little dummy. And I really liked the one color in the set called Night Scales. It's like a metallic black, a very, very, very dark Iron Warriors. So since Army Painter had sent me this set of colors, I figured I would try Night Scales in this particular painting project. Again, to get that black look of the Nightmare Dragon, but because it's metallic, it keeps some of the light from the surrounding areas and makes it almost look gray and quite shiny. It's a very nice look, especially in person in the finished model, and that's what I went with here. So not only was this a first for me airbrushing, it was a first for me using these colored metallics, or the metallic colors from Army Painter. So thanks to Army Painter for sending those my way. We'll see how they work in other fantasy paints where they have they have such a nice fantasy variety of colors in that palette, and I made placards for them where I'm using them instead of Citadel paint, so you'll see them again in Paint to Life. So as again you can see, I've took the base off underneath the clear plastic, so there's nothing in my way here. It's full access to get the Nightmare Dragon. Someone had commented in my video for the episode 45 that he was a pain to paint, and you're right. You can imagine how difficult this dragon would be to reach all these little nooks if there was, a 2-inch disc of plastic solid on the bottom, because how can you get up underneath the way I'm so casually doing here? It would be very difficult. So with all WizKids models, the Nolzers or the Pathfinders, you can break a lot of them off of the plastic pieces on the bottom. Now, as you know, or you might not, I like to make my own custom bases a lot of the time, but even if you're going to use the base that comes with it, you can glue them back on once you've painted them. So definitely breaking it off of its plastic bubblegum, as I call it, is not a bad idea, because now you've got full access to paint any way you want. You can paint the base any way you want, and then you can reproduce the two with some crazy glue, bring them back together, repatriate them so that they're now one again, which I will not do for this Nightmare Dragon. In fact, I had an idea to kind of create an ethereal plastic disc, so I actually mounted him on a bigger disc than he came with. I think this Nightmare Dragon is supposed to be a large size creature, and I used a huge disc because I wanted the extra real estate for this ethereal looking effect, which kind of looks like a space, an outer space thing, which I achieve later, which we'll get to. And unfortunately, because the airbrush was new and a lot of these things were new, I didn't get as much on film for this particular painting with commentary video as I would have liked, and I apologize for that. But I was experimenting a lot, and it's hard to film when you're experimenting because you don't necessarily know if what you're filming is going to yield any results, and you spend a couple hours and then you have something, but that's a lot of B-roll footage to go through to find the actual part. So please forgive me, and let's take a look. So you can see once you have something airbrushed, it's tricky if you make a mistake on it and spill, because when you want to touch it up, it's hard to touch up the airbrush part. So here's Black Templar. Now I've watered it down with contrast medium, so that's why it looks a little bit more gray than the Black Templar contrast paint. What I'm doing is I'm painting this on the actual clear part, plastic itself. Like other videos in Paint to Life, I paint these things with watered down, either diluted contrast paints using a contrast medium or just water, and put multiple coats on so it retains the transparency quality, but it also looks black like the shadow that this Nightmare Dragon is riding on, or that it's kind of emitting as it moves. Next up is Snakebite Leather. It has these horns at the top of its head. In the source photo they're clearly brown, not much to this, just 2 horns. Snakebite Leather is a very orange brown, that's why I used it, so it would kind of work with the tangerine frills. Also Ceramite White, and subsequently Apothecary White on top. The Nightmare Dragon's mouth, eyes, chest are all white, and there's not much out there that's pure white. Everything gets dirty. Off-white becomes the norm for most whites. So I started by using the Ceramite White just to get the white base down, and then switched to the Apothecary contrast to bring in those grayish highlights to make the white look a little used, dirty, and kind of glowy, if you will. Yeah, let's just say Gray Seer on wings. Yeah, as I mentioned, this model's almost done. This is a very short. I'm going to use very few colors from the source material. There's only a few different color variations, and you can see the wings in this case are still full orange with just some of that primer coming through. I realized if you again look at the source photo, the wings are almost white with very little orange, so I definitely hit the white again on the wings, or the Gray Seer as I just mentioned there, which we'll see in the finished pictures coming up here. But just otherwise, get underneath, there isn't much definition of his chest, or her chest in this case. They're supposed to be like triangles, and there's only so much in the model. I also used a Bugman's Glow around the teeth to split it up almost like gums. And now, we're going to see the base that I did. I used my airbrush again. I used black, Abaddon black first, and then I used a purple, Nagaroth Night. You can see I'm adding it to this airbrush and spraying it on there. And then I also used a blue, Night Lord's blue. This is my kind of galaxy effect. Then I used some yellows and some silvers and some whites with a paintbrush, just flicking them with my thumb to kind of get blood splatter. Fairy dust is the silver in that set, the metallic color set. And then I glossed the bottom when it was done. And again, that wasn't shown, but you can see, if you take a look here, that base, there's the finished dragon. See, the wings are now got the gray sear on top, and the base kind of looks like a galaxy. And that's just those airbrush colors I was just doing, followed by me flicking my paintbrush like to get like blood spatter effects on it, but like sort of nebulous look. It's kind of spacey, but it's also trying to simulate etherealness. So that was a very strange episode of painting with commentary, but it was a very strange dragon to paint. I hope you did enjoy the finished product, even though I know my mom didn't. Let me know in the comments below if you have any questions I might be able to address for you. And that's the Nightmare Dragon. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Wash your hands, people.